Here we go. Get your coffee cups up. We got to shake, rattle, and hum. Here we go. Word up to all the Morning Word crew. Thank y'all for tuning in, both in the United States and outside of the United States. And kudos and hats off and pats on the back and atta girl and atta boy. And thank you so much to all of our school teachers, our police officers, and our military personnel. The morning word this morning is keep on keeping on. This morning, we have one scripture. It's going to be in Daniel chapter 6. And let me tell you where it comes from. I'm going to read it here. I was on Facebook and looking at some posts, and I found this very powerful post of a young mother who posted her thoughts online this past January as we had a very bitter, contested, trying, debatable, hard to swallow kind of election here in our country. And she became very, saddened by the whole affair, and she put her thoughts down. And I sent this to many of you. So what I'm getting ready to read, some of you have already read, so it'll be kind of a rehashing of it. But I thought it was powerful, and I thought that it was appropriate for this particular day and time that we live in. Not just in the United States of America. I'm sure that this is also applicable to things that are going on in South Africa, in the Philippines, and so forth and so on. So if you go to Daniel chapter 6, and we're going to read in just a moment a verse. Actually, we'll read it now, and then we'll elaborate on the Facebook post. It's Daniel chapter 6, verse 10. Now, when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he went home, and in his upper room, with his windows open toward Jerusalem, he knelt down on his knees 3 times that day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom since early days. Now, the setting for this, many of you know, is where many men in government and those who were aspiring to become powerful and influencers in the Babylonian government went and connived to have the king make a decree that no one would pray, worship, so forth, another god for the next 30 days. Well, they found out that they knew Daniel did this, okay? They spied him out. They knew that this was Daniel's custom, that he prayed towards Jerusalem 3 days, 3 times a day, every day. That was his custom. Now, at the time that this is being written, okay, Daniel had been in captivity for some 60 years. This is a 60-year pattern of life for Daniel. This is not something new. This is not something that Daniel did to buck the government. This is not something he did to exercise his religious freedom. It's something that he had been doing for 60 years. Okay, so now a decree comes down from the government, from the king, of whom Daniel is in the upper echelon of the government, and he is very powerful. That's why these men were jealous of him. They wanted to dethrone him and compete for his spot. So they connived a law, pumped up the king, and he passed it that for 30 days or whatever it was, that they would not pray to another king or worship another king, or another god. And that's exactly what Daniel had always been doing. So Daniel did not go home and rebel. Daniel went home and did what he's always doing, okay? Now, he knew the consequences. He knew what the consequences were going to be, but he did not capitulate. He did not compromise. He kept doing what he had been doing. Now, let me read you this Facebook post. My granny told me throughout my adolescent years, be like Daniel. As we ended our phone conversations, as I hurried off to school, before my Saturday track meets, as I walked out the door with my date, her words were an ever-present reminder. She had a way of taking the most profound thoughts and condensing them into the simplest phrases. While I understood some of what she meant at the time, it's taken the last few years to come to fully value the depth of her wisdom. The America that I have known my entire life is no more. Driven by politics over relationships, we find the great tapestry of our nation hanging on by a few worn out threads. I am finding myself enraged by the actions of both sides. I am worried about what the future holds for my children. I am disheartened by all the noise, and I am broken over the divide that we all find ourselves in. This afternoon I wept as I watched the news. Is this really what America has become? Are we really allowing our country to be torn to shreds from sensational news coverage, social media posts, and a virus that has affected all of us in some way? Have we really allowed our nation to implode from within, the core of who we are, the United States of America, utterly divided? Tears ran down my face as I rocked my newborn son. How do I raise him and his sisters in such a tumultuous climate? What will life look like for them going forward? As I continued to rock, my sweet granny's southern tone filled my ears. Be like Daniel. So I turned to Daniel 6. Daniel had just learned that his worship would sentence him to death in the lion's den. While many know this portion of Scripture from the Sunday school lessons, Daniel is saved from the lions. It is his response to the decree that warrants such a profound statement to serve as a reminder to us all. When Daniel knew that the document had been signed, he went to his house where he had his windows in his upper chamber open toward Jerusalem. He got down on his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God, as was his custom, or as he had done previously. As he had done previously. Be like Daniel, Ariana. That's the first name of the girl that's writing this. Daniel was guaranteed the consequences of going about life the same. He was guaranteed about the consequences of going about life the same, yet he did not waver in his commitment to worship. He did not mourn the loss of his right to pray. He prayed as he had previously done. He didn't deny that punishment was to come, but he fixed his eyes on Jerusalem as he had previously done, remembering his identity as God's chosen people. He didn't fear death. He worshiped as he had previously done. He remembered who was in control. He remembered who alone he worshiped. He responded by doing just as he had previously done. Be like Daniel. Friends, I don't know where you find yourselves tonight. There's a good chance that while we may all align differently on the political spectrum, we find ourselves grieved by what is taking place today. Collectively, we mourn the state of our nation. I don't know where you stand with Jesus Christ. I don't know what you believe and hold on to, but I can tell you, my response going forward will be to do as I have previously done. To raise my children to know and to honor God as warriors for His truth, as soldiers of compassion and love for all that are made in His image, and as seekers of righteousness in a fallen world. To walk with my husband hand in hand, proclaiming the gospel in our words and deeds, creating a home that is a sanctuary of praise for our Father and a refuge of hope for those in need. To go about my days reading His word, being refined by His truth, transformed by His holiness, forever reminded that He holds our days in His hands. I do not know what tomorrow holds. I do not know what life looks like 10 years from now. I do not know how our nation will even go forward from here, but I can be like Daniel. Amid the dark news of today, I can respond by doing as I have always done, surrendered to the will of my Father, worshiping Him no matter what looms ahead, and in so doing, I can raise yet another generation to respond to the same. Let me go back up here, okay? On the darkest of days, when the world is more divided than ever, when fear overwhelms us, be like Daniel. Fix your eyes on Him. Fall on your knees before Him. Pray and give thanks and worship your God just as you have always done. The God who shut the mouths of lions for Daniel holds the future in His hands. We do not need to fear. We simply respond and do as we have always done. Thus we have the morning word, keep on keeping on. In other words, what are we supposed to do in light of all that's going on around the world? Keep doing what you've always done. When they make a law that you can't go to church, go to church. When they make a law that you can't pray in public, pray in public. When they make a law that you can't, preach the gospel, preach the gospel. And notice what it says here. It says that Daniel went to his house. You see, Daniel was the king in his house. Well, he served, his house served the King of Kings. Daniel ruled in his house, and he said, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. That's basically what he was doing. And he made a sanctuary out of his home, and he made it a place of worship. And he did what he had always done. Now, Daniel had been led away captive by a foreign government that had conquered his country. And beginning way back in Daniel, when they made a decision not to defile themselves with the king's delicacies, and then he used his spiritual gifts to serve the king in the new kingdom. God elevated and promoted Daniel. And then when people came behind him to destroy him through conniving and manipulation of the king, Daniel held true to his guns. Now, Daniel was pushing 80 years old here. And this was not something that he started yesterday. This is something that he'd been doing as a pattern of life. So here's some encouragement to you and I. In light of what's going on in our world, whether it be in South Africa, the Philippines, Great Britain, Saudi Arabia, United States of America, we are to respond by doing what we have always done. Okay? Worship the Lord and trust Him. Daniel trusted God when he had been a captive for over 60 years in a foreign country. He continued to stake his life on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now that is a fabulous example for us to follow. Just keep doing what you're doing. And when people say, well, you can't do that anymore. Yeah, we can. Yeah, oh, yes, we can. Watch. And Daniel didn't go out and put up a flag and raise Cain and draw attention to himself. He just kept doing what he was doing. And that's what we need to do. Just keep on keeping on. I hope this has helped you this morning. I hope you guys have a great day. And we'll be with y'all tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday, good Lord willing, and the saints don't rise. Peace out. Thank y'all for being with us.